Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the conference of the Global Apparel Sourcing Expo. This is the global sourcing, digital sourcing fair that has been organized by the IEF, the International Apparel Federation, and its partners Sourcing Journal and ForSource. My name is Matthijs Krité and I'm Secretary General of the IEF. The IEF is a global federation uniting industry associations from all over the world, from all continents, uniting them to help create stronger, smarter, and more sustainable supply chains. Now, during this conference, we're focusing on a number of important topics shaping our industry: sustainability, innovation, sourcing, trends, and of course, digitization. And it is now that we focus on this last topic, digitization. And I'm very happy and proud to be able to announce to you the speaker of this session, Andrés Fernández Gomez, who is head of sourcing of Mango. Now, I'm sure, including myself, the listeners will be eager to hear from Mr. Gomez how Mango is dealing with the topic of digitization, which sounds easy, but I'm quite sure it's not easy at all. Mr. Gomez, we are ready for you.
Thank you, Matthijs. Thank you, everybody. It's not easy indeed, as you said. So today I'd like to give you a little glimpse on what it actually means to go digital, to go and digitize the product creation process by the use of 3D tools, which we've been working on for a while already, but I would say for not as long as some other brands that are quite more ahead of us in this, and of course there are others that still have to take the first steps. And so this applies for both. It's a very important aspect of digital transformation in general for businesses, and it actually applies for both fashion brands, retailers, but also for vendors and suppliers. So I'll try to go through this in a way that everybody can have their own interpretation. So the agenda, I'll share a few ideas, and basically it's I'd like to first of all have a quick reminder of which are the benefits of going and using 3D design tools, and how to actually get started and how to get there, and a few of the obstacles you may find along the way, and some tips to overcome them, and lastly, just briefly talk about how I see the important role that the vendors will play in this. So in terms of the benefits of 3D design, I think by now all of us are aware of this, and we know them, and 3D has been around for a while already. And as I said, a few companies have taken huge steps ahead. But of course, everybody understands. So for the brands, if you go digitally in design, you can design and create much faster. And that means that on paper you could start creating much later in time, which is it can come quite handy today. And then of course, when it comes to creating and applying changes to the design and all the iterations that we all used to, that many times we need to see extra samples to check all the new changes applied to the designs. Of course, this all disappears. It's all digital, so you could do all your iterations on your screen. Of course, it doesn't mean that samples disappear forever, because all of us, we need the samples to take our own buying decisions. But you will only need to assemble the sample that's perfect, for you to take your buying decisions, and avoid making 2 or 3 before that until you are satisfied with your design. And also, this is something I'm very convinced of. designers can actually push their creative boundaries, and I think that they can really put a lot of detail on the garments. Normally, how they work today, you sketch and you draft something, and then pattern makers come in and create something that then finally ends up being a sample. But because in here, whether it's the designer or the pattern maker, you can see the whole design from zero to finish. You can actually pay a lot of attention to detail and fix every little part of the garment until you are happy with it. And I think in terms of creativity and the ability to play with the tools and change so many things, it gives this extra push to the designer's creativity. I think it's great. And then, of course, once you are, fully proficient in this, you definitely can use this for digital fitting sessions. And if you are a retailer, you can end up building your own digital showroom, which would ease a lot of the pain of assembling a showroom for your selling, which it's quite an issue with all the logistics of chasing all samples and putting them all together in one place. So in this way, that problem is solved. And of course, when it comes to e-commerce, product customization, which is it's becoming quite a thing lately. So if your designs are built in 3D, then you can actually put that on your website and offer a variety of features to the customers. And very importantly, for e-commerce, I think the size recommendation or some sort of virtual fitting for the customers, which would solve, I think, partly the problem of returns for e-commerce, which is one of the big problems of selling online. So for the vendors, I think if you exclude the last part of these benefits, the first ones are the same. So I think the vendors many times will complain that they make too many samples, and they get a bit crazy sometimes by the requests of a few of the customers. So all that part gets solved by using 3D design tools. How to actually get started or how to get there? What you need, you need a lot of things, but I would sum up 3 very important things, just to avoid, going in the wrong direction or spending too much time or effort in something that's going to end up in nothing. So the first one, I would say, have a clear goal. So depending on who you are, or if you're a brand, or if you're a vendor, or you may have a different goal, what to achieve, what you actually want to achieve with 3D. So all the benefits that I mentioned earlier are there, but maybe you don't really want to achieve all of those. So maybe you want to focus on something very specific. So depending on the nature of your business, it's important that you have that very clear in your minds. So it's not a matter of implementing technology just for the sake of it. So you really have to have a clear goal or what you want to achieve with this. And I think it's very important that you have the know-how for this. And I think pretty much nobody today in their teams have the know-how, and you have to build it. I would say it's difficult to get this talent from the market. It's not so common or so spread, the use of these tools. So that means that you need to get people and train them. So whether it is people or staff that you have already in your company, or maybe people that you hire specifically for these, chances are that they don't know anything about 3D. So you have to actually give them time to learn how to use it, to learn about the possibilities, and they have to have the time to do this. And then, of course, this maybe is more addressed to big brands. Get the relevant sponsors. So it's important that this is seen as something that it's not the idea of some crazy guy that wants to digitize some part of the business. It's important that the company is clear and focused in this goal, and that everybody else in the company knows that this is important. So this is done normally by getting some key people on board and really being kind of evangelists, as you may have heard sometimes about this whole issue. So these three things are really important. I think without them, it's really hard to go ahead. So some of the main obstacles that before we ever started in this, I had heard previously from many other people from other brands that I had talked to. And so, of course, and when you get into this, you know that many of these things are going to happen, and you have to be prepared for it because it actually will happen. So the first thing I would say is to manage the frustration of many people, right? Of the people working in this. So if you have built a core team for 3D, or sometimes it will be frustrated. Even big stakeholders in the company, if they are betting strongly on this, they might be frustrated. It's hard to go ahead because I've seen over the years, one thing is to talk about big changes in processes, in technology, and so everybody normally will say, yeah, we have to change, we have to do a lot of new things. But one very different thing is when you have to actually start implementing the change. So when it comes to actually 3D, so the creative people, the designers, the pattern makers, the technical developers, they have to continue doing their job on a daily basis. So on top of that, you'll be putting pressure on them to start, first of all, learning how to use this, and little by little introduce this new technology in their day-to-day work. And that's hard. And I would say in today's time, even in COVID times, it's where everybody is, having extra pressure for their work. I would say it's difficult. It's quite difficult, and well, you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to think of the proper ways to slowly introduce this into the teams. This is quite intensive in terms of cash, in terms of the time it needs. Whether if you're a small company or whether if you're a big company, normally all those kind of software licenses are not cheap. And especially in terms of time, you have to put a lot of hours in that. So the learning curve is very long. And again, I don't think these times are the best to start, getting cash into these kind of initiatives that are so long term. But be prepared for that. And also, you may see that, depending what kind of business you're dealing with, or if you are maybe a vendor working only on one kind of product, then maybe one software will be enough. But if you are dealing with a whole collection, probably after a while you'll find that some product categories are not completely solved with one kind of software, and you have to start looking for extra software packages. So it adds to the complexity of the whole thing. And I have to say, after a lot of studying and talking to a lot of people, I don't think there's a global solution yet to the problem of fabrics and trims. So that means that you can create a design in 3D, you can create digitally, but in terms of the fabrics that you want to use on your garment, there's not a universal place where you can get your digitized fabrics. So pretty much you will have to work on your own for that. I know that there are steps being taken in the industry to go to some kind of standards and let's say universal marketplaces when it comes to fabrics and trims, but it's not there yet. So for the moment, you have to do your own digitization of fabrics, which means one thing is physical properties for the fabric, another thing is textures and artwork or prints. That's the easier part. The physical parameters part is a bit more tricky and very time demanding, and it's not scalable at all. So you have to figure out how to do, as of today, until there's a bigger solution to that. Yeah, and because this is something very long term, and it's going to take so much time, especially thinking about big fashion brands. It's going to take a long time for all the teams to adopt this technology and get them implemented into their day-to-day. But technology doesn't stop, and there's new technologies being developed today, and new things coming up every day. So probably I know for sure that once you think, okay, I'm finished now, my teams are working 3D, then I don't know, the next thing will be something different. I don't know whether it's virtual reality or whatever. But this goes very fast, and fashion brands or even textile suppliers, I don't think we are used to absorb or adopt that kind of new technology so fast, and that's something that we have to really reconsider, because technology is really going really super fast, and in a way, we are an industry that we have been very slow, very late in adopting certain technologies, and that definitely needs to change. And then, yeah, of course, about the staff that you need, it's not just about assembling a garment, but then you also need to have and produce very nice quality 3D renders, which means that you probably need to work on the lighting a lot, and you have to have some certain product sensitivity. So the kind of people that you need is going to be very specific for that. So a few tips that based on our experience, I feel okay to say is, first of all, know where to start. So provided that you have a clear goal what to do with 3D technology, you have to, in order to ensure a smooth flow of the whole thing down your pipeline, make sure that you know the right team or the right business unit of where to start implementing this, just to avoid having a little bit of a failure right at the beginning. So maybe you want to start with the team that has the bigger collection, because it's going to have the most impact in your company or in your sales if you're a vendor. But maybe you have to also know your teams and understand their dynamics or their particular situation, because maybe it will not be the best idea. So have to think twice, analyze all possibilities, and really have spot the place where it's best to start within your own organization, and work quickly to understand this new technology and how it will affect your own workflow of processes. Because, and this is something that probably if you have started to investigate a bit on this, but it's actually going to change the way that the product is created and designed compared to the traditional way. So the people will still be there, but the tasks that everybody will be doing might be a bit different. So you have to try to get the understanding of this as quick as you can, so that you can set up your teams or your organization in the best way. Do a lot of communication, because this is something that it's been here for a while already, but I guess that for some people it can still sound a bit of like science fiction, which definitely it's not. This technology has been here for ages, and in many other industries is very common, but not in fashion. So the more you communicate, the more you talk about it, the more you sort of normalize the use of this technology, and you make people understand that this is something where everybody's naturally going. Of course, you have to have your own goals on how you want to progress in this, but again, the learning curve is long. So just in order to manage expectations for everybody, and also frustrations from some people, just try not to go for very, very ambitious goals from the beginning, because it can be very difficult. And in terms of the software or which tool to use or to purchase, of course, you need to do a bit of assessment of what's out there in the market. And it's easy to get a bit of trapped in analyzing so much about all the tools. And I mean, there are a lot of very good tools out there. and every tool will have their pros and cons, and for sure one of them will adjust to your organization better than others. But I would say don't spend too long analyzing which one to go for. I'm thinking about big brands that in the end they're thinking, oh, but in the long term I have to buy so many licenses. What if I mess up? I buy the wrong one. But I think the worst thing to happen is that you don't do nothing or you act too late. So it's better to start as soon as possible because this is such a long process. Yeah, just to finalize, I think the vendors will have to play a very key role in this, because I think that's my personal opinion on this. I think it's much easier to implement or to adopt 3D technology for a vendor than because of their size compared to a few of the big fashion brands. So if you think about Inditex or H&M or maybe even us in Mango, so medium-sized companies or even very big companies trying to implement 3D, it's like a huge challenge. Maybe for suppliers working with these companies, that each one of them individually will be much smaller in size, and their design teams will be much smaller as well. It's much easier to implement, and so if little by little there's a considerable and significant supply of 3D designs coming in from suppliers to the brands, then inevitably I think the brands will have to follow, and all the designers and pattern makers and the brands will have to really give a push in this thing. And I think the problem with materials that I mentioned earlier, it might get a bit simplified because, well, more or less each vendor can actually put their effort in digitizing their materials or their fabrics, not all the fabrics in the industry. So I'm thinking that if there's this kind of flow of digital assets coming in from vendors to the brands, it will sort of force the change a little bit more than if the brands will have to really be the leaders in this, because as I said, it's hard and it's very long term. But at the same time, the brands, we really would like to have a fully digital collection, because all the benefits that I mentioned in my first slide. So of course, we would like to have our digital collection 100% today. I know that Tommy Hilfiger has a target of having 100% created collection digitally in 2023, I think. So of course they would like to have it today, and us as well. But we can't. But if we had it, we will use it for so many different purposes. So if suddenly I see that this and that vendor are having really significant 3D capabilities, I would really think on how we can deviate some of the buying budget for that. Yeah, so that's why I think the vendors will really be very relevant in this whole process. And that's it. I hope it's been useful for you guys to have an understanding on how this whole digitation thing is going, and what to expect if you get into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrés. This has been enlightening. I have to say, you've managed to do something that's very tough. You really explained well why it's so difficult, and at the same time, you gave very practical recommendations to actually make it possible. So, some people tell why something is difficult, and then people despair and think, I'm never going to be able to do it. But after this presentation, I think it's clear how to do it. It seems to me like part of the difficulty is in the sort of ultimate multidisciplinary approach. So you need, obviously your design and your HR, even communications. I like the way you extend it into the supply chain, involving the vendors and the role that they can play. It seems to me like the ultimate opportunity as well for manufacturers and for vendors to strengthen their position, to stand out from the crowd, right?
Yeah, it could be, as you say, in a way, because and I think especially in these times we're living, when with COVID, where also everybody is talking about what is the right sourcing strategy for the big fashion retailers, and where we should all be buying from and manufacturing, and probably everybody will be setting a lot of budget for short circuit buying and that kind of thing, which is of course a relevant discussion. But again, it's really important to know that in many other industries, they are a bit more ahead in digitization than the fashion industry. So if one fashion retailer has a digital collection, they have like a gold mine, I would say. So if in terms of, if you are a vendor and you bet on this, and you are and you communicate this to your customers, and you really have a vision on this, I think it can be actually quite fruitful for your business in the years to come.
Yeah, that's really good. One thing came to mind, what you hear sometimes, and maybe that's something that can at this point only be done by small players and small brands, but where you actually only produce something if it sells. So, I mean, the technology would allow you to do that. You have a digital sample, and that's what you post on your website, and only if you get enough. And you could even have a different price, because obviously you can't get it the next day, but you have to wait a little bit longer. But I would expect there's a market for that, and you can have the lower price because you have less fashion risk. But
yeah,
what is your take on that?
Totally agree. This is something that we also have in mind in our company, and yeah, it becomes trickier and trickier over time to really, let's say, purchase in the right quantities, and so that's why everybody's trying to buy as late as possible. So of course, if you could actually only produce what you actually need to sell, it's fantastic financially for these companies, and it's fantastic for the environment, because you avoid having so much overstock unsold. So yeah, this is something that we also have in the radar in our roadmap for 3D. But it's, again, is what I said earlier. You have so many ideas, and it's so clear what you can do with this technology, but just to get there, it's such a long road, and it's so many hardships along the way that it's sometimes you forget. Yeah, of course, we will be able to do this once this is deployed and everybody knows how to use it. But in the meantime, we have to focus on getting the people to learn how to use it. If there's no 3D creation, there's nothing you can do with it. So first, you have to focus on that.
Yeah, that's clear. A last question, in view of the time, education. We are in a fashion ecosystem, and everything counts. Do you think presently the educational institutes that deliver the new professionals to a company like Mango, that they've caught on enough, that they're doing enough to support this trend?
Yeah. I'm not an expert in this, but I've actually had a few conversations with some of our HR people, and I think no. I think some big fashion schools or universities, they are pushing on this, but not so many. So I guess this will be increasing, but I think this is something that needs to be improved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's something I've heard other things that an international federation like IEF should be focusing on, the standards you were talking about. So that is very much on our radar. Great. So, Andrés, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for this wonderful contribution to the topic. And I really, really wish you all the best of luck in weathering this already difficult situation and then implementing all of this.
Great. Thank you so much, Matthijs.